Our second and final project is a winery located in Carnaris Valley, which resides in Napa, California. Looking at the site from afar in a bird's eye view, one can see the Carnaris Valley can be found in the westernmost outskirts of Napa. As we get closer, we begin to see the water bodies that surround the site and the connection from the site itself to the transportation network in the area, which in this case is Henry Road. Notable characteristics of the site consist of a hill on the northwestern side of the site. There is also a group of trees set in a line which divides the site on a north-south axis, as well as several outlying trees. The southernmost part of the site is where Henry Road lies. As one approaches the site, they will be greeted with a large, mostly flat space with a fence of trees emerging from the southeast part of the site, and at a distance, a first glance of the hill is displayed. Adjacent to our site lie existing vineyards on the southern side of Henry Road. These vineyards and our site sit within the extent of the Carnaris Creek Valley on gently sloped southern-facing land. The existing 156 acres of vineyards have an expected 937,500 pound Pinot Noir and Chardonnay yearly grape yield, resulting in about 781 barrels of wine per year.
These sun path diagrams demonstrate how the sun passes over our site, providing important insight into the ways in which we can position our projects to allow natural light to enter into them. Specifically, as our site is located in the northern hemisphere, the sun is positioned to the south. Throughout the summer months, the sun reaches far more extreme altitudes and azimuths than it does during the winter. As the sun's position throughout the day varies depending on the season, these diagrams further illustrate effects that can be taken into consideration when placing the project on the site. In particular, depending on the kind of wine a winery is looking to produce, the path of the sun should be considered relative to the position of the grapevines themselves, as some wines require a more sun exposure for sweetness, while others require shade for a more bitter outcome. Winds on site tend to come from the south and west, corresponding to the San Pablo Bay and the Pacific Coast respectively. These bodies of water cultivate cooling conditions that create wind flow. This information is useful when positioning our sites, as prevailing winds can be used for natural ventilation throughout the various steps of the winemaking process. The site's climate is Mediterranean, with moderate temperatures year-round and dry summers. These moderate temperatures, however, have been steadily rising for the past few years due to climate change. The topography of the valley within which our site is situated further accentuates these rising temperatures, as warmer air sinks to the valley floor due to adiabatic heating. Temperature is important to take into consideration when designing a winery, as the various aspects of the winemaking process often require a range of different conditions. Thus, temperature must be controlled within these programs. The placement of these programs can aid in temperature control, whether it be embedded in the ground to create cooler temperatures or positioned to face the sun, creating warmer temperatures.
When planting wine grapes, the type of soil can influence the wine's access to water, minerals, and nutrients. The soil of our site is primarily clay and slit loam, meaning the soil particles are smaller and tend to retain more water. The dry farming reduction process saves water and promotes better root growth for the vines, more so than irrigation routes. This natural process improves the quality of the wine, but can also risk soil depletion if groundwater overflows with underground minerals. It is important to be aware of the recurring creek in our site so the groundwater does not flood in the vineyards. With wine spacing, there are several factors to consider: sunlight interception, space for adequate growth, site vigor, and the number of vines per acre. Overly vigorous sites might require that vines be widely spaced to encourage vigorous vines to fill a larger canopy, or vines with minimal vigor may need to be planted closer together to fill the canopy completely to maximize sunlight interception. Row width and height will affect sunlight interception by the canopy during various periods of the day. Grapevines' roots tend to reach about 2 meters underground and use 4 different layers of solid to properly grow. For those of us using green roofs or having programs below the vineyards, this is important to know how deep one has to go underground. Clay foam and slit loam are the two most prominent soils in Napa County, especially on our site. Clay soils tend to stay cooler and help retain water, known for producing the richest and red and white wines. This soil benefits grapes that want to produce Merlot and Chardonnay. In contrast, slit loam produces wines with little flavor and color.
As a way of breaking down the individual spaces within the winery's program, one method of analysis can include a kit of parts referencing known wineries and their plans. Looking at the Martins Lane Winery, 4 main spaces of program can be categorized: receiving, fermentation, storage, and showrooms. This general understanding of these 4 main wine production spaces helps one grasp what needs to be put in a winery programmatically. Equipment and machinery are a very integral part of modern wine production, and considering its place within design and organization can be very helpful in generating these spaces that efficiently support wine production. This diagram puts machinery in scale with the program requirements, helping estimate how much of the floor plan can be used dedicated just for machinery. Water is also used at nearly every step of the wine production process, primarily to irrigate crops, clean equipment, machinery, and surfaces. Some wineries, however, also add water in the fermentation process to help facilitate the conversion of sugars to alcohol. The process of wine production can be divided into a series of stages that slightly differ depending on the type of wine that's being produced, whether it be red, white, or rosé. The winemaking process always starts off with harvesting the grapes, which are then crushed, but depending on the wine that's being produced, the liquid can be pressed, fermented, or macerated in different orders, followed by an aging process.